going on, MMA fans? I'm back to do my MMA Corner number 22 video, sponsored by Revolt Renegade clothing. I'll put their link down here for you to go check them out. Great clothes, great hats, a lot of great apparel. My apologies ahead of time, a little under the weather, not feeling good, sore throat. Don't know if I've got the oink oink, if you will. Probably not, but if it gets worse, what I'll do is I'll end up going into the, they have like little Central Care centers down here in Florida where you can go in, and it's kind of like an emergency room, but it's an outpatient clinic, and I'll just go in there and get the little swab thing going on, just to make sure. But nonetheless, these MMA Corner videos are intended for me to connect to you, the watcher, the subscriber, to kind of, send in your topics, suggestions, things that you want to talk about for me to go over. So I've got 3 to go over for this edition of the MMA Corner. All 3 really good topics. One of them going to be enjoyable to do for sure. The first one's from Mario Pill 3000. Wanted me to talk about should there be a concrete ranking system in MMA. Brock Lesnar, Anderson Silva, they both got title shots early based upon their popularity outside of the UFC. And conversely, would a ranking system be bad? I did a video on judging and scoring, and I've even talked about the ranking system in the past, but you won't see a uniform ranking system, similar to what Wham-O's trying to do, until all the commissions are uniform across the board with their rules, with judging, with reffing, with scoring, everything. Everything has got to be uniform across the board. If it's not, it's just never going to happen. It's something that I know I've talked about just recently. Carson's talked about it, about MMA needs to step up their game with having uniform scoring and judging and reffing all the way across the board. It's something that we've all talked about here in the MMA community, and until that happens, you will not see this happen. Also, the UFC is a business. They're always going to put on the fights that make money. George St. Pierre, BJ Penn, Randy Couture, Brock Lesnar. Those fights made money. So it's not right. People that follow MMA religiously, the diehard fans, they don't agree with it. I don't agree with it, but it's an evil that you run into when you've watched MMA for long enough that you realize this is part of the UFC. This is part of what they do. So, could it be bad? Yes, if it got out of control as far as promoters. If promoters got involved, you saw the similarities. Well, not similarities, but you've seen that in boxing where it's just gotten out of control with the greed and the way that the promoters have almost put boxing into a box and almost killed it. You're starting to see a smaller resurrection of it now, which is a good thing, because I'm a boxing fan too, and I think it would be really, really sad to see boxing go away, because MMA and boxing are 2 different sports, and that's a whole different video for a whole nother day. But they both have their beauties and their faults. So thanks for the topic. XKJ Rock wanted me to talk about what's the most technical fight I've ever seen, the biggest comeback, biggest upset, bloodiest fight, and funniest moment. So, most technical fight, I picked a couple, grappling-wise and on the feet. Jason McDonald, Demian Maia most recently. A very, very entertaining fight on the ground. Jason McDonald, even though he's not at the level of Demian Maia as far as grappling, an ADCC level, he did very, very well in that fight, considering he had a couple good sweeps, a couple good transitions. On the feet, Marcus Davis, Chris Lytle, very, very entertaining fight. Takanori Gomi, Tatsuya Kawajiri from Bushido 9 is another one that I can think of. I don't remember if this one was a year ago or 2 years ago, but it was my fight of the year winner, which was Mario Samroskas versus Ross Mason. That was an awesome fight, a very, very technical fight back and forth. Biggest comeback, we've got a couple. Clay Guida, Roger Huerta. Clay Guida was just picking apart Roger Huerta on the ground for 3 rounds. Roger Huerta ends up getting a rear naked choke, winning the fight. Keith Jardine versus Houston Alexander, where Houston Alexander was dropped, comes back like 6 or 7 seconds later and knocks Keith Jardine out viciously. Very, very crazy comeback. Biggest upset most recently, Mir over Nogueira. Nogueira has never been stopped in his MMA career. He's had several situations where he was in deep trouble against Fedor. He got rocked really, really bad against Heath Herring the 3rd time around with that leg kick that he walked right into. And, yeah, that's a nasty one. Matt Serra, George St. Pierre's another one. Gonzaga, Crow Cop, that's another one. Bloodiest fight, Babalu Sabral versus David Heath. That one probably is the bloodiest one I've seen in a long time, and that anaconda choke that was sunk in, because of all the crap that happened at the weigh-in, but I ended up getting Babalu kicked out of the UFC, but that was a very bloody fight. Right behind it, I would have to say Joe Stevenson, BJ Penn. That was another really, really bloody fight. Funniest moment, Rampage Jackson versus Igor Vovchanchyn, when Rampage handed Vovchanchyn the notes from his mother saying, "Please don't hurt my son." A nostalgia moment from Pride. That was very, very funny. One of the funniest moments to me, personally. The other funny moment to me, Crazy Horse Bennett versus Mishima at Bushido 9, where Crazy Horse Bennett was doing all the antics. He ripped the stuffed animal open in the corner. When the ref called him into the middle, flicking his tongue out, doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the camera. And at the last second, Mishima steps into the camera and just goes like this, and you hear the Japanese crowd get into it. Very, very funny moment. One of the funny ones to me from Pride, and one of the funniest moments in MMA, I think, to me as well. Thanks for the topic. Very, very good one. The next one's from Kid Tack. Wanted me to talk about, do you think fighters from the same camp will ever fight? For example, most recently, Keith Jardine, Rashad Evans, that whole talk that Dana White had about that, about if Keith would have beaten Rampage, they'd have been forced to fight at some point. AKA with John Fitch and Josh Koscheck. I really think that in that situation, especially with what's come up now with Dana White, because you normally don't hear about this, I think it's just a publicity stunt. I think it's to get people sucked into believing that we will make these guys fight for whatever reason, whether it be for a title shot or if they have to fight, we'll make them fight. If you know and you've been to camps, I've been to ATT, I've gone to several of the different Gracie Bajas here in Orlando, and the different ones in the area where some of the guys that not only train for some of the smaller shows, but up to Strikeforce, up to the UFC. There's a lot of time and effort put into those camps, and guys know guys' game plans, guys know guys' weaknesses. They end up sharing bonds, friendships, their homes, their lives to each other, and to force them to fight when to make game plans against each other when guys like in Jackson's camp where GSP was fighting for the title. Rashad Evans went all the way up to Canada to help GSP train. That's what I'm talking about. You're not going to see, I think, that happen in MMA where guys are going to be forced from the same camp to fight. Those guys put a lot of energy in, and it would just be, putting friendships on the line, putting trainers, putting, your life that you put so much into that camp as far as helping other guys out. I think that becomes in jeopardy at that point, and I just don't see that happening. So, thanks for the topics, everybody. Make sure that you leave some comments, constructive, negative, positive, as always. Check out my sponsors in the description side. Leave topic suggestions for the next MMA Corner segment. And on that note, you guys have a great day.